two more verses that we'll be singing just after we sing the Jagannath Ashtakam, which are important verses for us to enter into for the Jagannath Rath Yatra, as they were the verses that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was absorbed in when it comes to the meeting of Srimati Radharani and Krishna at Kurukshetra, which you'll find in the Srimad Bhagavatam 10th Canto, 82nd chapter. And that meeting at Kurukshetra, which is heartfelt after 100 years of separation, is enacted in the Rath Yatra that we participate in by Srila Prabhupada's mercy all over the world. So we'll read the translations now together, and then we'll sing the Jagannath Ashtakam and the two other verses, and then we'll have some discussion about those verses and why they were important to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all the devotees. Sometimes, in great happiness, Lord Jagannath with his flute makes a loud concert in the groves on the banks of the Jamuna. He is like a bumblebee tasting the beautiful lotus-like faces of the cowherd damsels of Vraja, and his lotus feet are worshipped by great personalities such as Lakshmi, Shiva, Brahma, Indra, and Ganesh. May that Jagannath Swami be the object of my vision. In his left hand, Lord Jagannath holds a flute. On his head, he wears feathers of peacocks, and on his hips, he wears fine yellow silken cloth. From the corners of his eyes, he bestows sidelong glances upon his loving devotees, and he always reveals himself through his pastimes, his divine abode of Vrindavan. May that Jagannath Swami be the object of my vision. Residing on the shore of the great ocean, within a large palace situated upon the crest of the brilliant golden Nilachala hill, along with his powerful brother Balabhadra, and in the middle of them his sister Subhadra, Lord Jagannath bestows the opportunity for devotional service upon all godly souls. May that Jagannath Swami be the object of my vision. Lord Jagannath is an ocean of mercy and is as beautiful as a row of blackish rain clouds. He is a storehouse of bliss for Lakshmi and Saraswati, and his face is like a spotless, full-blown lotus. He is worshipped by the best of demigods and sages, and his glories are sung by the Upanishads. May that Jagannath Swami be the object of my vision. When Lord Jagannath is on his Rath Yatra car and is moving along the road, at every step there's a loud presentation of prayers and songs chanted by large assemblies of brahmanas. Hearing their hymns, Lord Jagannath is very favorably disposed towards them. He is the ocean of mercy and the true friend of all the worlds. May that Jagannath Swami, along with his consort Lakshmi, who is born from the ocean of nectar, be the object of my vision. He is the ornament on the head of Lord Brahma, and his eyes are like full-blown petals of the lotus. He resides in the Nilachala hill, and his lotus feet are placed upon the heads of Anantadev. Lord Jagannath is overwhelmed by the mellows of love and becomes joyful in the embracing of the body of Srimati Radharani, which is like a cool pond. May that Jagannath Swami be the object of my vision. I do not pray for a kingdom, nor for gold, rubies, and wealth. I do not ask for an excellent and beautiful wife, as desired by all men. I simply pray that Jagannath Swami, whose glories are always sung by Lord Shiva, be the constant object of my vision. O Lord of the demigods, please quickly remove this useless material existence I am undergoing. O Lord of the Yadus, please destroy sins which has no shore. Alas, this is certain, that Lord Jagannath's lotus feet are bestowed upon those who feel themselves fallen and have no shelter in this world but him. May that Jagannath Swami be the two other verses up there now.
Yeah.
And now we'll read two verses. This is a verse spoken by Srimati Radharani. My dear friend, now I have met my very old and dear friend Krishna on this field of Kurukshetra. I am the same Radharani, and now we are meeting together. It is very pleasant. But still, I would like to go to the bank of the Jamuna, beneath the trees of the forest there. I wish to hear the vibration of his sweet flute playing the fifth note within that forest of Vrindavan. And now we'll read an unusual verse. And this is the verse that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would sing during the Rath Yatra. And it's a verse that's not in Shastra. It's a verse that is famous from those who are students of grammar and poetry. A book called Sahitya Dharpana, in which various levels of poetry were expressed. Some of them expressed high-minded poetry and well-composed poetry that was according to dharma and was in the mode of goodness. And other verses were to show what was an error in composition. They were adharmic or affected by the lower modes of nature and constituted a rasa basa. And this verse, as it happens, which was a favorite of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's, was in the latter category. That means that it was not well considered, or it was only for didactic purposes that teachers would bring this verse out to say, this is not very good. For it's about a woman who's speaking, and she had a love affair earlier in her life. Later is married to the man that she had a love affair with. And she's happy, but not as much as when she remembers her tryst in a forest by the bank of the Reva years and years ago. No one knew why Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was singing this song. In fact, people may have looked askance, and they did, because why was a sannyasi in front of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in front of the great assembly of sages who had come for this exalted ceremony, singing not only a secular song, but also one that was adharmic. Only Swarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami knew the reason for this. And the deep meaning of this verse and the other verse we just recited, we'll discuss in just a moment after we read the translation. That very personality who stole away my heart during my youth is now again my master. Start over, but everyone read. Wait, hold it. Read nice and slow. It's a very deep verse. So feel it. That very personality who stole away my heart during my youth is now again my master. These are the same moonlit nights of the month of Chaitra. The same fragrance of malati flowers is there, and the same sweet breezes are blowing from the Kadamba forest. In our intimate relationship, I am also the same lover. Yet still my mind is not happy here. I am eager to go back to that place on the bank of the Reva, under the Vitasi tree. That is my desire. What do you got? One more?
It's okay.
Jagannath Ashtaka. Kada chit kalindita tabi pira sangita karabo. Vadana Kamala Swada Mudhupa Rama Shambhu Brahma Marapati Ganesha Chittapado Sadevenum shirasi shike piksham katitate Vikulam netrante sahachara kataksham vidtate Srimad Vrindavan Vasati Leela Parichayo Jagannath Swami Narayana Patagami Bhavatu Me Bodhestire Kanakaruchire Nilashikare Vasam Prasadanta Sahaja Balabhadrina Balina Subhadra Madhyasta Sakala Sura Seva Vasarado Jagannath Swami Narayana Patagami Bhavatu Me Vani Ramaspuradam Malapanke Ruhamukha Surendra Raraja Shuti Gana Shikha Gita Charito Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me Rudha Gacchanta Milita Bhudeva Patalaya Prabhu Bhavam Pratipadam Upakanya Sudaya Daya Sindhur Bandhu Sakala Jagatam Sindhu Sutaya Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me Param Brahma Pidatu Valaya Dulakulanayano Nivasini Ladra Nihita Charano Nanta Shirasi Rasanandi Radha Sarasa Vapuram Indranasuto Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me Navaya Cherajamna Chakanna Kamanikya Vibhavam Nayacheham Ramyam Sakala Janakamyam Varavadhu Sada Kale Kale Pramata Patina Gita Charito Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me Haratam Samsaram Dukataram Asaram Sudapate Tvam Pampanam Vitatim Param Yaravapate. Dinenate Nihita Charano Nishitamidam. Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Avatune. One more time, everybody. Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Avatune. Soyam Krishna Sahachari Kuru Kshetra Milukas Mahaka Kaham Saradhaka Tam Upayo Sangama Sukam. Patilam Madhura Muali Panchama Jushe. Manone Kalinde Pulina Vipinaya Hayati. One more time. Manome Kalinde Pulina Vipinaya Hayati. Vipinaya Srihayati. Yakomara Hadasa Eva Hibaras Ta Eva Chaitra Shaka. Teko Nilita Malati Surabaya Prodaka Dambanila. Chaiva Smutata Pitatra Surata Yapara Lila Vidha. Deva Rodasi Vedasi Tarutale Cheta Sambukantate. Dasi Vedasi Tarutale Cheta Samukantate. Devaro Rasi Vedasi Tarutale Jagannatashtakam punyam yapate prayakasati Shudhatma Vishnu lokam sagachati. I first offer my respectful obeisances to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who revealed the heart of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a Rupanuga. We're all Rupanugas, as Prabhupada says in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. And Srila Prabhupada, as an intimate devotee of his spiritual master, receiving the mercy of Rupa Goswami through the disciplic succession, unprecedentedly revealed the meaning of Rath Yatra to the world, including at Venice Beach, which is nothing more than a miracle and the proof of the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because if we take a scale of the most sophisticated and high-minded places in the world, and we considered the top among them, we wouldn't find Venice Beach. Nonetheless, we see every year that Sri Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadraji come on their Rath Yatra carts. But what does it all mean? It means many things. But Srila Prabhupada tells us in several lectures when he spoke on Rath Yatra that it is a very feeling festival, he said twice. So we want to also know, what is that feeling? Undoubtedly, it's a glorious festival that people see from a distance and feel that I must have seen something from another realm, because the mood of those who are chanting and dancing, as well as the pageantry and the sheer majesty of Jagannath on his carts, is awesome in the original sense of the word. But what's taking place here? What is the feeling? So we first offer our respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada, who has revealed that to us through his extensive teachings. He didn't just present the Rath Yatra and say, chant, dance, feast, and that's it. But he also explicated the meaning in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, which also was published here, all the pre-press done here. And then Srila Prabhupada, after being asked by his leaders, how many should we make? He said, mass distribute. And if someone somewhere on the way to a military camp at 17 years of age, didn't finish high school, never will, gets the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita somewhere on a street corner in an airport and reads it, what will he or she think? Srila Prabhupada, like Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is noted by Kaviraj Goswami to have, without consideration, distributed Krishna consciousness. He didn't consider who was a fit or unfit candidate, or where was a good place or a bad place. Practically, he and his followers were mad, as in practically insane with love of God. And they were distributing it everywhere. And this was Srila Prabhupada's mood also in bringing out the most esoteric of all festivals and making it prominent down Fifth Avenue, in the middle of Chicago, vying for becoming the murder capital of the world. Sorry, Chicago. And many other places where people are absorbed in Kali Yuga as their main occupation in life. So, this verse, and I offer my respectful obeisance to all the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. Gaur Premanande Haribo. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, fifth chapter, Narada Muni, in a very important discussion with his disciple Srila Vyasadeva, says, Idam hipum sams tapasasrutasya va shrishtasya suktasya buddhidatayo avijrutar tar kavirupit ka uttama shloka gunarnavarnanam. That throughout human society, people endeavor for some taste, and they go towards, in the best of circumstances, meanings they have some little tinge of the mode of goodness amidst the oceans of passion and ignorance, towards the aesthetics of beautiful poetry, literature, songs we find around the world, even in the secular world, that people flock to hear a singer who has composed even a few verses that move the heart. Poetry is part of the spiritual world. Yataganam natyam kamanamapi bamshi priyasaki. They're accompanied by the flute. Everyone's singing beautiful verses and dancing to them. And they're filled up completely by this. As with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as his main method of practice, we know in Jagannath Puri, in the last several years of his stay on the planet, would sit with Ramananda Roy and Surup Damodar and hear verses recited from Jayadev Goswami and other exalted Rasika Vaishnavas. And he would relish the moods of Vrindavan by hearing that. The verse that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sang out loud at the Rath Yatra, which seemed to many people who could not understand him to be wholly inappropriate. However, Rupa Goswami had heard Chaitanya Mahaprabhu singing that verse at Rath Yatra. And of course he had met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu once near his hometown, and then later got instruction from him, and then came back to meet him in Jagannath Puri. And there he stayed at the house of Haridas Thakur. It was not a house, it was a little bhajan kutir, a hut, thatched. And while there in Puri, Rupa Goswami composed a verse to explicate the deep meaning of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's singing this secular song. At that time, such verses were written on palm leaves, and they were written with a little stylus that you'd press on the leaf and then put out in the sun, and then where you'd touched it, the colors would change, and that would magically appear, the letters. In his beautiful handwriting, he wrote the verse that we sang a moment ago. And then he put it in the thatch of the roof, and he went off to take his bath. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who used to come there every day to see Haridas Thakur and Rupa Goswami, who, by the way, never entered the temple of Jagannath, but Jagannath, as Prabhupada said, came to see them, happened upon the hut of Haridas Thakur and saw in the thatch what looked to be a little flag sticking out. And indeed it was. Flag announcing the innermost desire and heart of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Mahaprabhu took that verse from the roof and read it, he was astonished. And soon afterwards he saw Srila Rupa Goswami, who offered him obeisances, and before he could fully stand up, Mahaprabhu slapped him mildly in love and said, "How did you know my heart?" And then he embraced him. And he brought him to Surup Damodar, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, other luminaries who had gathered there, and told everyone that he has understood what's in my heart. How did he do it? How did he know? And of course, we recite regularly the verse, Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mayam Tadati Swapadantikam. Manobhishtam means Rupa Goswami understood the heart of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he broadcast it. So, what was that? In the circumstance of the verse, Krishna had left Vrindavan after 10 years and 7 months. And during that leaving pastime, the gopis had contemplated grabbing the cloth of Krishna in his hands and pulling on him and saying, no, you have to stay. And some said, if you do that, then everyone will know of our relationship. And others argued back and said, what does it matter now? We're dead. If Krishna leaves Vrindavan, we won't survive. And these others are so foolish, these cowherd men, they're encouraging him. They're accepting the story that Akrura has brought, that he has to go now to Mathura. And this is foolhardy because they will die too. We'll all die if Krishna's not here. And then, of course, they entangle themselves in the spokes of the wheel of Akrura's chariot. We can see the artwork. But on Krishna's promise, I'll be back in 3 days. Somehow or other they tolerated as Krishna drove off to Mathura, and they stood like painted pictures without moving. And from that day forward, for 100 years, there are various descriptions of Vrindavan and how the devotees there pining for Krishna to come back to them in that place, constantly crying, and without caring for their physical bodies. And of course, they don't have physical bodies. Ananda chinmaya rasa pratibhavi tabis tabirya eva nijarupataya kalavi goloka eva nivasat yakilat mubuto govindamari push. The transcendental, but in the pastime of loving exchanges with Krishna, they experienced this intense separation from him. And of course, Krishna, hearing about this, had sent Uddhava to come to Vrindavan and read them his letter. And if you examine the letter Krishna sends, you'll see that he recommended that they meditate. I'm all pervading. How can we ever be separated? Of course, when the gopis saw Uddhava, he looked exactly like Krishna. And they encircled him. They wanted to know who he was, why he looked just like Krishna. And then Uddhava started to understand that actually, I didn't come here to deliver a message. I came here to learn what is actual devotional service, what it means to have love for Krishna. He saw the madness of Srimati Radharani conversing with a bumblebee, which is epic story we have in the Krishna book and the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Uddhava wrote prayers there saying, I don't deserve to be here, but if in some future lifetime I can become a clump of grass, somewhere nearby the footpath where these most exalted of all souls in the whole creation are walking, then perhaps some of the dust will come and land upon my head. And then my life will be perfect from that contact. Krishna had gone to Mathura. And of course, Jarasandha attacked 17 times. And he had been annihilated 17 times. And then on the 18th time, Kalyavana came from one direction. Jarasandha came from another direction. And Krishna decided to walk away from the battle. All the time, his intention away from Vrindavan was to protect the residents of Vrindavan from the demons who had crowded the earth with ill intentions. They had made this a little colony. It's just like Star Wars, because it's a copy. the Star Wars is a copy of this. And he had then moved his beloved devotees from Mathura one night. They found themselves in Dwarka, in golden palaces, in a fortress in the middle of the ocean. And of course, Dwarkadish, or Krishna as a king, he had gone there, married 16,000 wives. Of course, we know from our acharyas that he never forgot the residents of Vrindavan. This was not some other love affair or preoccupation he had. Much of it was strategic to marry so many queens whose fathers-in-laws had positions of power in his overall strategy to defeat the demons. And also we hear from the Brihad Bhagavatamrita that even as Krishna's in Dwarka, in the middle of the night, his pillow is soaked with tears. And he's thinking about the residents of Vrindavan. His mother, father, Srimati Radharani, and pining for them. And even as he's calling out the names of Radha and his queens, might want to know, who is that? As he's calling out in his sleep. That happens sometimes. And when Krishna frankly admits that I married you only because you reminded me somewhat of Srimati Radharani, they didn't mind. As factually, they're all expansions of Srimati Radharani. The goddesses of fortune in Vaikuntha, of course, in Dwarka, all the queens, simply expansions of Srimati Radharani. And Rupa Goswami reveals to us the ontology of the situation. Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir Ladini Shakti Rasmat Ekat Mana Vapi Bhuvipura Deha Geda Bedam Gatau Tau Chetam Yakyam Prakadamaruna Tatdvayam Chaikyamatam Radha Bhavi Duty Suvalitam Naumi Krishna Sarupam. That Radha and Krishna are one, but they've divided themselves eternally for this exchange of loving affairs. This is the pinnacle of all existence, this love between Radha and Krishna. And one of the ways that it's intensified is through the separation, which takes place in Krishna's pastime. And then Krishna arranges that on the solar eclipse, which would be observed by millions, tens of millions, at Kurukshetra, which is a sacred place, as we know from the Bhagavad Gita, the very beginning, Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre. They would all come there, and this was the perfect time for Krishna to meet the residents of Vrindavan, because everybody was coming. No one would suspect the residents of Vrindavan, whom Krishna kept secret. He didn't want anyone knowing about his attachment and to his hometown and to all the devotees there, what to speak of his parents, Nanda, Yashoda. And he sent some heralds to Vrindavan, beating drums, announcing that everybody was coming to Kurukshetra. And everybody did come. Millions came from Dwarka, of course, just Krishna's own family. You could do the math. 16,108 wives, 10 sons from each, then count the grandsons. It's part of your algebra SAT. From that side, Krishna came on a golden chariot surrounded by military and fanfare. And from the other side, we have the residents of Vrindavan. Not all of them came. That's a long and involved story why only some came, which we don't have time for now. But they came on bullocks. They're cowherds. And they rode in to this Kurukshetra Mela. And of course, Krishna was holding court with the great sages and kings. And when he heard from Uddhava that the residents of Vrindavan had arrived, he excused himself. Meeting's over. There in the 82nd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we find then this reunion. And coming back to our verses, there when Srimati Radharani finally meets Krishna, there at Kurukshetra, after pining for him for over 100 years, then as they come together, she says, "My dear friend, now I have met my very old and dear friend Krishna on this field of Kurukshetra. I'm the same Radharani, and now we are meeting together. It is very pleasant, but still I would like to go to the bank of the Jamuna, beneath the trees of the forest there. I wish to hear the vibration of his sweet flute playing on the 5th note within that forest of Vrindavan." This meeting is reenacted during the Rath Yatra as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as Srimati Radharani sees Lord Jagannath, who is Krishna, face to face, and implores him, please come back to Vrindavan. And as we pull the ropes, it's in the mood of bringing Krishna back into our hearts, Prabhupada says, and also bringing Krishna back to Vrindavan. And if we make our hearts Vrindavan, wherever we go, we'll have this mood of always bringing Krishna closer to us. What to speak of being enthusiastic to bring others closer to Krishna by taking the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through Srila Prabhupada's books and his process of going door to door to meet people and tell them, please chant Hare Krishna, or we'll roll on the floor right here in the suburbs. And spreading the Krishna consciousness movement. This is all the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Radha Krishna combined, and this festival is the topmost festival. As Prabhupada said, it's a feeling festival. So we can remember the pastime of Kurukshetra and the meeting of Krishna and Srimati Radharani and the residents of Vrindavan who had come there. And as we pull, we can be enthusiastic to invite other people to grab the rope and also bring Krishna into their hearts. Om Tat Sat. The end. Bahusha, Prabhu. Thank you. We have a microphone for you. Actually, we have two. Please pass this, Monisha. Take two things. One so everyone in the room can hear, and the other so everyone online can hear.
Many devotees have wondered over the years, what's the sound of that 5th note?
Sa re, ga, ma, pa.
Is it D?
Sa, depends where your saw is. Rameshwar Prabhu.
Where's that flute player who was playing flute earlier?
That was such a wonderful class, obviously. All of us feel that. But you started by explaining how where we celebrate Rath Yatra here is not one of the topmost places.
Not among the topmost.
Yes. But I wanted to give a different perspective. Other than 26 2nd Avenue, there's no place in the Western world that Srila Prabhupada spent more time at than right here in New Dwarka. And every morning, other than a few exceptions for the park in Santa Monica, every morning he would walk the sands of the beach of Venice. And Prabhupada always brought with him, eternally, the atmosphere of Goloka Vrindavan. That was Prabhupada. When he talked to us externally, he would be coming out of that a little bit to just interact with us. But he brought that to Venice Beach. So in another sense, it's a place of pilgrimage for us because Prabhupada walked there many, many times.
Haribo. Actually, you always bring the mood of Srila Prabhupada in the mood of Vrindavan and remind us of that mood that Prabhupada brought. Thank you very much. We can only take a couple more because I'm getting signals. 1, 2.
Hare Krishna. Thank you again, Prabhuji. It's a wonderful
Hare
class. And the beginning you mentioned about Prabhupada's desire of massive distribution of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And I have read a most wonderful, amazing story. Indrandu Maharaj was doing so much preaching in Poland. So in one village, there was a miner, and not very educated, but he was free, went to the library. And for all the books he found, there was a Chaitanya Charitamrita. Began to read, won't understand too much, except that there is a group of people who were chanting and dancing in Rath Yatra. Years they were waiting there. Finally, one day Maharaj was doing a festival there. He saw the flyer and he went to the festival. He said devotees dancing, chanting, he was so much in ecstasy and crying. Still, sitting there, he said, where is the chariot? Where is the chariot? The book says, at the time there was chariot also. So finally Indra Maharaj showed him the chariot. And then he began to cry again. Said, wow, I'm so many years late. So Maharaj said, no, you are at the right time, at the right place. Thank you.
Haribo.
All praise to Prabhupada books.
Okay,
Prabhupada.
for the close.
Vaisesika Prabhu, thank you for bringing us real Rath Yatra. So, in the beginning you mentioned that Mahaprabhu chose to sing, which was considered low class or scandalous, perhaps. And was it like a cinema song of the day or something? Anyway, whatever it was, it raised some eyebrows. So I kind of missed why he chose that verse, which could be so misunderstood. Of course, Parakiya, Ras is the highest, but anyway, can you say something more about that, why he chose that particular verse?
It's the conundrum of the situation through which, although Krishna is standing right before Srimati Radharani, she's still feeling separation from Vrindavan. And Krishna is not Krishna alone. Krishna is Krishna in Vrindavan, where there is unceremonious love. In fact, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Anarpita charim chirat karuna yavatirna kalo samarpayitum tojvala rasam supakti shriyam Hari purata sundara dyuti kadamba sandipita sadarare akandare spiritu va sachinandana. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to point to this specifically. He wanted to show, because he said, Anarpita charim chirat, it's not been taught before. Everyone knows God and offers their reverent prayers. Vaikuntha, if you go to the Vatican in Rome, it's grandiose. But where's unceremonious love? That's the real love, as Prabhupada says. Prime Minister Gladstone in England had a visitor who came to see him, an important man. And the secretary of Mr. Gladstone, Prime Minister Gladstone, said, he's very busy now. He can't be seen. And he waited for an hour, did the visitor. And when the secretary was out of the room, he thought, maybe I'll see what he's doing in there, which great personality he's talking to, so that our meeting is delayed. He peeked through the door, and he saw that Prime Minister Gladstone was playing as a horse, and his grandchildren were on his back, and he was going around the room. And Prabhupada points out that the mood in Vrindavan is Krishna without any position. He's himself. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very specifically wanted to point this out to the world and wanted to give us a process which we're actually following called Ajata Ruchi Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti, where we may not understand everything about the deep feeling and mood of the festival. We should. As we cultivate that knowledge and we enter into the festival, then we'll come to know it ourselves directly and feel it. But that was what the meaning of the verse, pointing back to Vrindavan. It's not just here in Dwarka. If Krishna says, yes, you can stay here, be with me in Dwarka, and Radharani would say, no. Oh, I want to go to Vrindavan. It has to be Vrindavan. We have to hear the fifth note of the flute. It has to be on the Kalindi, a moonlit night. And incidentally, she says, all these teachings you're giving us, both through Uddhava about Gyan, and there at Kurukshetra, more Gyan. She said, yes, this is very purifying. However, she said, we take it as a scorching sun of knowledge. It's burning us. We can only take the moonlight of your lotus face in Vrindavan. So it's this way in which she's there, but Krishna's there, but it has to be that love of Vrindavan. And this is our Gaudiya Sampradaya. It's all pointing back to Srimati Radharani, and it's all pointing back to Vrindavan. Om Tat Sat. Thank you very much, everybody. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Just in a couple of minutes, we're going to assemble right here and chant a few extra verses in a very fun and melodious way that will leave you dancing ecstatic. So if you don't have immediate service, then you can sit down and we have some papers you can read from, and we'll chant the mantras. Gaur Premanande, Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo, Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Vanchakalpataruscha Kripasindhameva Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nantakodi Vaishnaviniki Jai.